After 16 years, I found out my fiancé had been lying and living a double life. Now, I'm fighting for what's mine and reclaiming my freedom. My boyfriend Rick, name changed, and I live together. In fact, we own a home together. Even though we own a home together and have been together for 16 years, I still feel like just a roommate to him, like he can't really commit to me. Here are some things he does that kind of make me question whether he's really in this or not with me. Though we live together and own a home together, we keep our bank accounts separate. He also insists on paying the mortgage by himself, with his own account, every month. I pay some utilities and buy groceries, almost as though I'm paying rent to live in his home. Rick has not allowed me to put any personal touches on our home. Though we've lived in it for a while, it looks the same as when we moved in, with the exception of the room his computer is in, which is decorated to his liking. Every time I mention something we could do, like paint, or show him something I like, he either tells me it's dumb or says he doesn't like it. I don't push him, because I don't want to start an argument. Rick and I recently got engaged. Now, I know that doesn't scream commitment issues, but hear me out. A few years ago, a couple of close friends of ours got engaged. I was upset because I've had to watch all of my friends get married after being with their boyfriends for much shorter periods of time. He caught on to the bad mood I was in during their engagement and wedding, and I told him why I was upset. So a week after their wedding, he agreed to get me a ring. I went with him to buy it. I thought I was finally getting somewhere. But he told me it wasn't an engagement, and that I could wear it, but he'd ask when he was ready. It's like he bought the ring to shut me up about marriage. After months of his friends cracking jokes about our non-engagement, he finally just decided one night while we were at home that it could be official. He said he had a huge plan to surprise me to propose, but I never heard anything else about it. It wasn't my dream proposal, but it was finally happening, so I said yes. He insisted on a long engagement, at least a year, and didn't want to set a date at first. I began planning and looking at wedding stuff because I figured it would eventually happen, but he never seemed interested. It's been about 6 months and we've picked a date, with much pushing on my part. But he wants nothing to do with any wedding planning unless it's to something I've done. He spends most of his days on his computer when he's not at work, and if he does happen to come out to see me, he goes right back shortly after if I so much as bring up the wedding. He has very strong opinions about what our wedding shouldn't be, but doesn't want to talk about the wedding at all to give me an idea of what he does want. Every idea I have for the wedding gets shot down. It's almost as though he's trying to stop the wedding from ever happening by making sure I can't plan it. He told my close friend's husband, their friends, that he regrets proposing because I've been going crazy about the wedding, and that he wouldn't have proposed had he known what I was going to act like. Like what? He's surprised that wedding planning takes place after you get engaged? I don't think I'm going overboard about any of it, but it's a huge deal to me. I've spent over half of my life with this man, and I've always dreamed of a huge wedding. I just don't know what to do. It's like he agrees to commit to me in certain ways, but when it comes to actually doing anything concrete, he can't do it. It's hard to talk to friends about it because the ones who do know the whole situation think he proposed just to get everyone, including me, off of his back about it. What do you guys think? Additional info from OP. This is honestly what hurt the most, that he told mutual friends of ours that he essentially doesn't want to marry me. I'm afraid that he proposed because our family and friends were always asking when it was going to happen. It got to the point that when we would visit his family they'd ask us, "So did it happen yet?" And we'd know they meant an engagement. I worry he's with me because we have a semi-open relationship and he doesn't think he can find another woman who'd agree to that. I don't think I'm explaining it right, but essentially we can sleep with other people as long as we're both there. OP comments on whose idea it was for the open relationship. It was his idea. And now I think it may have been his way of getting the best of both worlds without having to commit to either. Update. I just wanted to thank every one of you who took the time to read my first post and for all of the support I've received since. A lot has happened in the last couple of weeks, so I figured I'd post an update. I hired a lawyer and moved out one day while Rick was at work because my name is on the title and the mortgage. My lawyer assures me he either has to sell the house and split the profit with me or buy me out. I know he can't afford to buy me out, so I assume we'll put it up for sale. I get most of my things out of the house except for a vanity and a dresser that are too heavy for my friends and I to move. I moved out the day before Halloween. Since then, I've messaged Rick a few times to see what we're going to do about the house and to schedule a time to come pick up rest of my furniture. He's pretty evasive about all of it, so last Thursday, I showed up at the house with some friends to help me get my stuff. He's changed the locks, so I can't get in. We wait for him to get off of work and come back, and he lets me in to get my stuff. All he said before he let me in was, "You asked for this, so I don't want to hear it." I didn't know what he meant. I was absolutely not prepared to walk through that door, but when I did, it became obvious why he didn't want me to come pick up my stuff. I didn't even recognize the house that I lived in just a week prior. It was painted, there was furniture and art and things everywhere, and I could tell by looking around that Rick didn't do this by himself. There are pictures of him and some woman all over the place. They have to go back at least a year, because one of them was taken on New Year's, though I couldn't tell what year. I just left. I can buy more furniture, but I couldn't spend a second more in that house. Rick texted me right after I left, saying, "We're not selling, we're just going to buy you out." I was at a complete loss for words. I'm still in shock. I spent 16 years with that asshole. And he was with someone else for who knows how long. I'm trying to get over it the best I can, but it's hard. It would be hard leaving just because we've been together so long. But to find out that your life was pretty much a lie was a hard pill to swallow. What hurts even more is that for years I tried to decorate my house to make it a home and he wouldn't let me. She couldn't have lived with him for more than a week and the house already looks different. I honestly don't know how I was so blind, but I'm glad I got out when I did, even if he did waste half of my life. Edit to add mini update. I just want to thank everyone again for all of their support. A lot of you pointed out that my name would still be on the mortgage even if I sell, so I've decided not to sign the paperwork accepting the buyout. Rick was not okay with this and has been blowing up my phone ever since he found out today, calling me a petty bitch and that I was just trying to ruin his life because he was finally happy. I know they're both pissed off because they put a lot of effort into the home in the short time since I've left, and honestly, I kind of feel better that they won't be able to enjoy it. I know it sounds terrible, but making this harder on them is making me feel better about the entire situation. For the majority of our relationship, I felt like he was always the one in control of everything. It's nice to have the final say. I know I've said a lot how he's wasted half of my life, and I'd like to clarify that I don't think I'm too old or that it's too late for me, just that I couldn't understand why this man would string someone along for as long as he did. He's pretty much all I've known, and it took a lot for me to leave him. I feel like I've missed out on a lot of the dating experience, but I think I'll be okay. I'm just going to enjoy being alone for right now. Since I moved out, I've been staying with a friend. I signed a lease for a one-bedroom apartment today, so by this time next week, I'll have my own place. I've already bought a bunch of things to decorate it with, and I didn't have to get anyone's permission to do so. Relevant comments from OP. On if the other woman knew about her. I'm not sure if she knew about me. She knows I'm the ex now, and I own half of the house, though I'm not sure she's aware of how recently we were together and I was living there. Last New Year's Eve I was out of state because my mother was in the hospital. Before that I had a job managing in retail and I typically always had to work either late into New Year's Eve or early New Year's Day. The picture could have been taken between 2011 until this last New Year. I'll definitely be going back to get my furniture. I was just so shocked at the time that I couldn't be there. When I get really angry, I cry and I didn't want to give him the satisfaction. Story 2. We're having a sixth kid we can't afford, so we expect you to give us your college fund. I am F19 and my parents' second child. I have 3 brothers, 21, 13, and 7, and a sister 16. We grew up poor and our parents were often dependent on financial help from relatives, friends, etc. for raising us. This is because even though my dad has a mediocre job and my mom doesn't work, they just kept on popping out one kid after another. My parents are very religious and believe that children are a gift from God. Personally, I think that's total BS. My parents' reproductive choices wouldn't bother me if it hadn't caused mine and my siblings' lives to turn to shit. While growing up, we never had new clothes or toys. We had to accept handouts from family members who were better off. We never went out or did anything fun. To top it off, we were well aware that the rest of the family looked down on us for constantly asking for handouts. Now my older brother and I have managed to get into good colleges and are looking forward to a future that would be better than our parents' lives. He and I were staying at our parents' place for a while due to the COVID-19 lockdown. One morning, my parents called all 5 of us into the living room. Mom said she had great news. The smile that was forming on my face died a quick death when she said we're pregnant. I lost my temper. I asked them how they could be so stupid and irresponsible. Do they not have enough financial troubles already that they have to bring in another mouth to feed? My older brother tried to calm me down, but I was livid. After a lifetime of scarcity, because of my parents' stupidity, they still hadn't learned their lesson. I asked them how they planned to provide for the kid. My dad told me I would have to give up the money our great-uncle had left me. He had left all 5 of us some money, which only we could access when we turned 18. I said hell no. That money would help pay for my college expenses. He called me selfish for not being there for family. I told them if they couldn't provide for the kid, they should get an abortion. My mom started crying and called me a heartless monster. Dad told me he was disgusted with me. I told them there was no way I was going to pay for their stupidity, and the only thing I would be willing to pay for is a termination. What I was really worried about was my siblings' lives getting even worse. My older brother and I have escaped our parents' clutches, but the others, especially my younger sister, will be expected to help take care of this baby. No teenager deserves to have their adolescence ruined by diapers, a screaming baby. I know what it's like, as I had to go through that. It was expected of me to be an unpaid nanny to my younger brothers and sister. My older brother could go out with his friends and have fun, but I had to stay home and help give baths and feed the toddlers. I decided to get some family members involved so they could talk some sense into my parents. I called my mom's maternal cousin. She's one of my favorite people. When I told her that mom and dad were having another kid, she reacted with what again? I told her everything and how they expected me to hand over my inheritance. She said she was going to speak to my parents and told me not to sign over anything. I promised her I wouldn't. Of course I won't. I also called two of my first cousins, one of whom is an accountant, so she could explain to my parents how much of a financial liability this baby is going to be and try to convince them to either abort or give it up for adoption. I moved out of my parents' home a few days ago. I was only going to stay there till the lockdown was relaxed, but I just can't bear to listen to my mom's nagging about how this baby is a blessing and that I want to kill it. I've moved into a friend's basement for a minimal rent. My mom's cousin paid them a visit about a week ago and tried to tell them they weren't doing this child any favors by bringing it into a life of poverty. My mom was very rude to my aunt and told her that a woman who chose to remain barren will never understand a mother's love. My aunt never wanted kids nor had any, one of the reasons she's my fave. My dad told her to get out. Aunt told me there was nothing she could do, but she did try. I didn't blame her. The cousin tried to explain the economic impact this kid would have, and my mom cried about how everyone was trying to take away her baby. WTF. The intervention didn't do shit. So now I've decided to cut contact with my parents. I just can't watch my family slide further and further into a hellhole. I'll be maintaining contact with my sister, I'm 16, just to make sure my parents can't brainwash her. My older brother is going to stay in touch with all of them, which is a good thing as he can act as a link between me and the other siblings if my parents ever forbid them from talking to me. Otherwise I'm done with these people.